Okay.
Yeah. So, the follicular phase. Exciting.
Okay. Maybe we take a deep breath and then we'll start.
Okay.
And we can still
Actually,
bring the
breathing
energy.
is really good.
I know, and this is we're getting more energy phase. So we
Getting
also
more
don't need to
energy.
pretend like we're,
Serious.
I was going to say close to death, but
I mean, I'm not feeling close to death.
okay, good. Welcome to Not Designed for the Grind, a period reality podcast about women's health, hormones, and the power of understanding your cycle.
I'm Dr. Katerina Bambang, consultant gynecologist and reproductive medicine specialist, and also founder of the Delphi Clinic.
And I'm Marlou, a social entrepreneur and TEDx speaker, and founder of Period Reality and Jibe. We bring together science and storytelling to change the way we understand women's health.
Every week, we'll have honest conversations, we'll challenge outdated myths, and we'll bring you fresh perspectives on women's health. Today, we're in the follicular phase. Our energy's building, creativity and possibility are coming back online. The episode is all about space for fresh thinking and new direction.
Let's
begin. Right, go.
Let's go, the follicular phase.
The follicular phase. So yeah, things have shifted, haven't they?
Slowly but steadily we're coming out of it. If
Yeah.
the menstrual phase was snuggling up on the sofa with a cup of tea.
Yeah. This is shifting the fog and getting a bit more energy.
Yeah, letting the air in.
Yeah,
Let
like
it breathe.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it.
I'm excited to
Good
be
way of
here.
describing it. I'm excited to be here.
It was
Nice to be back.
Episode 1 is done.
Done. Episode 2. Here
And
we
we're
roll.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So tell me about the follicular phase. What does it mean to you?
Well, the funny thing is, before we dive in, sorry, I'm already taking a little side road, but I'm slowly entering my follicular phase. Like, I'm so happy to be in sync with our podcast.
With the actual
record.
podcast. Do you know what? Actually, I'm sort of halfway through my follicular phase. So actually, that's really good. That's really good.
Look
We're
at
totally
that.
in sync.
I
Yeah.
love that because I think this is obviously not always going to be the case, but
No.
it might help because maybe, the energy that people
feel
might be
in
picking up
tune.
and
Yeah,
stuff
you
might be
feel-
like,
Yeah.
I get that. So, I resonated with what you just said about like slowly and steadily like coming out of the menstrual phase. I think that's what it's like for me. I don't know about you, but I can feel when that's shifting, but it's not like an overnight thing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when people are quite new to cycle tracking or understanding their body, it's like, so then when do I move from phase 1 to 2 or 2 to 3? And it's like, it's never really going to be that,
Yeah.
with the flick of a switch. But I can slowly feel myself coming out of it, which is great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, and you know what? And some people might not notice the switch until much later,
It's happened.
until it's happened. For me, I don't really feel the switch until I'm weighing because it's so gradual.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely couldn't tell you, oh yes, my follicular phase started yesterday or today.
To be fair, I think your menstrual phase is probably the only one where sometimes you can literally be like crying the night before, being super irritable, overwhelmed, massive imposter syndrome, and then as soon as your period hits, you're like, yes, that's probably for me the most powerful
shift. Yeah, I would probably say the same, but not from luteal to menstrual, probably a bit further back within luteal. I kind of feel that shift, but yeah, same. But the thing is, and what I think is really interesting is, because there's lots of women I'll speak to who will say, I don't get any of that, and none of that happens. And my argument is always, well, because we're so busy, like you could be racing around life every day and not realize that those shifts are happening. And it's only sometimes just taking a moment to say, oh, I'm feeling this way. Sometimes you can link the feelings back and vice versa, and then start to develop your own rhythm of what it feels like for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So I find that that's helpful sometimes.
And it helps when I think I've spoken to many people who are able to pinpoint their ovulation because they feel it. They can almost tell you, like, is it the left or
completely.
the
I'm
right
one of those.
side and stuff. So I think
Yeah.
if your body is giving you that some clear physical signs, as much as day one is, because you can
Yeah.
clearly see when that starts, when you start bleeding. It's like it helps you maybe benchmark where you are in your
Where you
cycle
are.
a little bit better, because otherwise, you know, day one, and
Yeah.
then you're kind of relying on getting familiar with these
Yeah.
gradual shifts and stuff. So these actual physical things are like, oh, at least now I know I'm ovulating.
Yeah. And ovulation's an interesting one. It's like you say, and I've worked with a few women to start to get to know that they're ovulating. And actually it's interesting that even that comes. So I've always known when I'm ovulating, but you know, when you start to pay attention, yes, you know, you get the shift in sort of, you know, the appearance of mucus or, you know, some pain. And sometimes it's just a sensation. And, you know, I've had some women who will say, oh, I've just got this change sensation and I know it's happened. And so when they've kind of tested a couple of times as well, I'm like, yes, you know, and it's a real validating point
Got
that, you know, I've
it. Yeah,
tested for ovulation
yeah.
and it matches up the things I've experienced. And I always think it's a useful thing to do, even if you're not needing to know that you're ovulating, if you're not trying to conceive or anything special. But actually, it's just not a real validation to your own personal
Yeah.
feelings. And I suppose the only other point about that I like is when you're having to advocate for your body and what's happening to you, feeling in sync or knowing those things helps you feel more confident about what you're saying, because then you can say, no, this is what happens to me. It
Yeah.
may not happen to you, but
It
this is
definitely
what
happens to
happens to
me.
me.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't shut me down if you know you disagree, or, you know, sometimes I don't know. I know there's a lot of talk at the moment in the media about people's experience with healthcare and women's experience with healthcare, and so knowing your body quite well makes you feel more confident when you're
Yeah.
having to speak for yourself. So I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. And having, you know, if you keep track of it as well, and if
Yeah,
you have some
yeah,
data to back that up, that
yeah,
always
exactly.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is happening in our bodies in the
What is
follicular
happening in our
phase?
body? It's exciting. So this is the bit. So if menstruation is the bit where our hormones were at their lowest, then now's the time when our hormones start to rise. So predominant hormone is estrogen, which is our sort of power hormone. And it starts to rise sort of right towards just before the end of menstruation, just before the end of your period. Starts to rise all the way through and then peaks just before ovulation, which is the end of your follicular phase. And the whole point of this phase is to produce an egg, essentially. This entire phase is in preparation. So if you picture your ovaries, so in your ovaries, what is happening is you've got these, you know, you picture a kind of box that contains all of our eggs that we're ever going to have, and they live in these little sacs called follicles. And so a few of them are going to come out and they're going to start responding to the hormones that our brain is producing and start growing, and then they're going to start competing with each other as to which one's going to be the one that's going to win the race.
I'm such a visual person. I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally with.
So yeah, so there'll be one. So, you know, so you'll get a few that come out on either side, and one's going to win that race. And when, as they're growing, they're the ones that are producing the estrogen. So they produce the estrogen, and then eventually you get this sort of upshoot of estrogen, which then triggers your brain to trigger ovulation. And the one that was the biggest sort of little sac, this follicle, will just pop and release its egg. And that's your ovulation process that's happened. And that whole phase is the follicular phase. So that predominant hormone is estrogen. And so then when you think about estrogen in the context of the rest of the body, because you've got receptors for estrogen in your brain, in your bone, in your immune system, you know, it just exists everywhere. So yeah, lots of things happen, lots of
And
changes.
I love that you're using that metaphor, because I think obviously at this point we don't know yet who is going to be listening to this podcast, but what I found is that when I started to learn more about the 4 phases and actually dive deep into what's actually happening in your body and the impact that it has on me, I just felt really dumb.
Did you
And yeah, because it's like, you're supposed to know this
know these
stuff.
things? Yeah, I
And
know what you
and
mean.
actually I see that a lot with people that we work with period reality as well, that we talk to people about this, or we deliver a training, and then the first thing people will
People
say
will
is,
say,
I'm so sorry, I didn't know any of this. I'm like,
oh,
isn't it ridiculous that we feel
yeah.
like we need to be apologizing
Apologizing for
for
not
the fact that we
knowing.
don't know this, whereas
Yeah.
actually it's not really our fault that we don't
No,
know this. Like, we should
no.
have been taught this stuff. But
Yeah.
all that to say is that I think sometimes the way it's being described and using, even talking about the hormones, was very new to me, right? Like, you could say, oh, there's a lot going on with your hormones, and then you have a
Yeah.
period or whatever, but actually naming them. And for me especially, like, obviously was taught the names in Dutch, and then now I
Oh,
lived in
yeah,
the
that's
UK, and
true.
so I just felt like, when I then started looking into people working in this space, every time I came across their resources, I feel like they were much further ahead than where I was. Whereas actually what I very quickly realized is that the majority of people is very much at the beginning of this journey of
Yeah.
getting to know and
Getting to know.
understand our body. That's obviously what we talk about and what this podcast is about, but even more so underlying the vocabulary,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, what do all these things
Yeah.
mean? And
Completely. You're so right. And do you know what's funny is that it's that realization is so empowering, isn't it? Because I find the same actually, is that for me, obviously, hormones are my life. It's like my
yeah,
livelihood. And so I've been working on them for so many years. I sometimes forget that it's not ever, the day to day normal basis. There's certain things I'll talk about. And there's times I think, oh gosh, I'm so sorry that I'm kind of making you go through these things. And I remember one lady, she was lovely. She sort of said to me, "Oh my word, thank you for explaining that." And I thought, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, because I thought I was I was boring you with this
yeah,
conversation about all these things that you already know. So you're right, actually. It's interesting, isn't it? And we should be told this so much earlier than we are, because I actually think it would make such a difference to the way we live our
I
lives if we
agree.
know. And even if we just shift because for me, the shift in using the actual words or the actual names of the hormones, is that I almost don't love, that whole, oh, are you hormonal, and that sort of link that sometimes comes with
Yeah.
using the word hormones. And so I think, well, actually, if you just use the names of the hormones, you're actually much more specific than people sort of say, oh, well, as if hormones just do one thing, they just do so many different things. So yeah. The other thing that's interesting, I think, about the follicular phase is that your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, is also ever so slightly higher than in the rest of your cycle, which is interesting. We don't know what the
Yeah.
link to that is and whether it links directly to any experience. But yeah, I think it's an interesting
That is interesting,
relationship, isn't
because
it?
I wonder whether that cortisol maybe give you more of a drive and a bit of an oomph,
Yeah, maybe.
rather than actually
Yeah.
giving you that stress. Because, and I mean, we'll dive into this more obviously in other episodes, but you just called it estrogen, like your power hormone, I think was the word you
Yeah.
used. And I'm all for calling things what they are, but I think sometimes it helps, especially when you're new to the vocabulary, to have some of these like
Yeah. Yeah.
other words.
Links.
Is that in the luteal phase, so like the more second half of your cycle, progesterone, the leading hormone, is your calming hormone?
Yeah.
I'm only thinking of that now because you say like the cortisol in the beginning is like, I think, again, speaking from my own experience, but also from the stories that we hear almost daily, is like, there are very few people who would consider that week before their period to be calming.
Calming. Calming.
And it's how we respond to that, because maybe if we
Yeah.
lean into that, and if we actually allow ourselves to be calm and slow
Yeah.
down, that hormone will come more to the surface. Whereas now, because we're still, I mean, we're
Yeah.
not,
Trying to
we
power
chose
through.
not designed for the grind. Like, if we're still in that
Yeah.
hustle mode of showing up, we don't allow ourselves to be calm, and that's where, there's this kind of friction maybe between like
Yeah.
what our body wants and needs and what we're actually giving it. So just saying that to mention, like, maybe that cortisol
Yeah, is there
is
to
there to
fulfill
kind
a
of
role.
helping you get out of that
Yeah.
rot that you may have been
Yeah,
experiencing around
yeah, that's
menstruation.
such a
And
good point actually. And it's really hard because the physicality, so there's research that suggests that the mood side of things is potentially aligned to your cycle and that there may be some mood variation in your cycle. But then the kind of cognitive or the brain, how you show up may not be affected by your cycle, or there's no evidence really to say that it's affected. But you're so right in the reverse, in that if your body's asking for certain things but you're not delivering them, that definitely has an impact. So for example, we know that your metabolism goes up a little bit in the second half of your cycle, so your luteal phase.
yeah,
And so you actually probably want to eat a little bit more. And what helps the metabolism of your hormones at that time is also a slightly higher carb load. And so even changing the way that you eat can support, your hormones functioning the way they need to. There's some data that says maybe exercising, doing your heavier exercise in this follicular phase is helpful.
yeah,
And so leaning into those things and sort of saying, well, actually, why don't I vary? Instead of expecting the same things from myself all the way through, why don't I change it up a bit and see how I feel and see if I feel better? If I don't know, do some more strength work in the follicular phase and then eat a little bit more, have a few more complex carbs in the luteal phase, and even just one simple change to see if it
it
varies
does.
things. Yeah, see what it does.
Yeah, because I think it's the best and probably sometimes also the most overwhelming thing to people new to cycle
Yeah,
tracking and things like that,
yeah,
isn't it? Because on one hand, there's this, what we always call the period reality rule is like the only thing that is true is what is true for you. Like it's a very individual experience because bodies respond and react differently, and the way your body works might be different than your neighbors and stuff. And that is really powerful. And equally, it means that no one can give you a blueprint.
yeah,
Wouldn't it be
yeah.
easier if someone could just say
Could
this
say
and,
this is what
do
you need
this
to
with your
do.
movement and do this with your nutrition, when
Yeah,
actually the only way to find out what works for you is also just by trial and
doing it.
error and doing
Yeah,
these best practices and
yeah,
see what
yeah.
works for you.
Well, what do you think works for you?
So I'm, from a nutrition point of view, I'm really struggling with that one
Are
because
you?
not struggling, like I'm not struggling, I'm struggling to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think that um, I've got ADHD, as you know, now everyone else knows. I think there's always a weird relationship when you've got ADHD in relation to nutrition. And I hope we can spend a whole episode on this maybe in a
Yeah,
different season,
absolutely.
because there's more and more coming out about that relationship between ADHD and your menstrual cycle
And menopause.
and menopause, and why so many women in their 50s get diagnosed with ADHD. So many ideas for new episodes. But what I find is that even from like, I don't feel like I get communicated that I'm hungry until I'm
Okay,
like really, really hungry.
that's
So
interesting.
for me to say, like, when people say you have to listen to your body, like from a nutrition point of view and from other cues, like I've got it with like go to the toilet, for example. Like I never need the toilet unless
Until you need
I
it.
really
I'm
need the
like that.
toilet.
Yeah.
I'm never thirsty until I get a headache and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't drink anything today. And with food, it's a little bit similar. So I think it's hard. It just changing one thing, what you were just recommending, is actually quite difficult for me in terms of trying to see how my body is what it's trying to tell me. And
Yeah.
I mean, I started period reality in 2020, so I've been in this
Space.
stuff for a couple of years now, and still I'm finding, I don't want to say beginner at this point,
It's
but I
not
still
beginner,
feel
but
like
do you
it's
know
like
what? I think I love that though, because that's like a lifetime of exploration.
yeah,
And then it will change up again,
yeah,
once you hit menopause, perimenopause. And I think that's the point, is that it's that rhythm, it's the sort of almost monthly rhythm that then changes all throughout life almost, doesn't it? And I wonder whether actually doing it the reverse, so instead of listening to what your body needs, then if that's not a cue that you pick up, maybe doing it the other way around, where you sort of say, right, okay, what are some physical things that I know about this that I will likely need, so that I can put those in place regardless.
Yeah.
And then if you put those in place and then see how they make you feel, and then maybe if you're someone who doesn't pick up on hunger, maybe just have like fixed times that you eat.
Well, and
That
I
might
think we
help.
touched on that in the last episode, where we said some people benefit from just start tracking, right? And see
Yeah,
what comes
yeah.
up, whereas others actually would like to see what's true for other
What
people and how do I score against it. And I find I'm very much one of those
are
people where
you?
it's like, if you would tell me this is what on average works for people, or what people, or and what you can explain as well. This is why I value our conversation so much. I think your lifestyle tip of the day last week was about like eating iron rich foods, and when you're on your period, I think those type of things where it also makes sense to me that why people are recommending it and why it would make sense. That's really helpful for me. And then I can use that as a starting point to kind of
To
start
build
exploring.
around. Yeah, that's really interesting.
From an energy perspective, though, I definitely notice it in the follicular phase. Yeah, I think I always have a lot of ideas. I know I don't need to tell you that, but I definitely feel this is like my, it's all coming out. And it has an element of, the ideas have an element of confidence with it. So it's not, I feel when I think them, when I say them, I feel like
You can
there
make them
are
happen.
ideas they actually have potential to
Yeah,
exist.
they're achievable.
Yeah, because I think I can do it. Whereas if I have ideas in my more like luteal phase, I feel like it's more of that. Then maybe your critical inner voice kicks in, and there's like your imposter syndrome, and it's like, yeah, you always have all these ideas. Why don't you just pick one? Whereas in my flick your face,
Yeah.
I'm like, I could easily do
I've got
10
this.
things at the
I've got
same
this.
time. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've from that perspective, like maybe the creativity and the ideas are flowing. And
Start to flow. And do you feel it? Do you feel it like a shift? Do you feel a real shift, or do you just sort of notice, oh, I'm in a good place right now?
I think that's it. And I think it's definitely that gradual, but I also, what you just said about sometimes in hindsight, it's then,
Yeah.
oh, but actually I've been having these ideas for 2 days,
For
or
2 days.
for 2 days, I've been feeling a little bit lighter. And what I always also really like about, I know you just called it like the power hormone. We tend to call it like your natural momentum builder. And with that rise of estrogen building up to ovulation, you have that increase in confidence, increase in energy, that's actually a really good time to start new things. And to challenge this idea that we talked about this a lot on around New Year's as well. We shared a couple of posts about that on social media as well, around this concept that people want to start a New Year's resolution. It's like, imagine starting a new habit when you're feeling at your lowest.
Yeah.
When you don't have the confidence, you don't think you can do it, you don't really want to leave the house anyway, whatever your New Year's resolution is. Or starting it when you actually feel like your energy's building,
Yeah.
and making use of that natural momentum builder. And I think even just from like a societal perspective, we talk obviously a lot about like this idea of systems change and looking at things differently. I think that is such a brilliant example that everyone can relate to, because we've all at some point in our lives decided on either a New Year's resolution or a new habit.
Yeah.
And it's always Monday. I'll start on Monday or next
Yeah.
Monday. It's like,
Yeah.
what did that Monday ever do to you? It's not about the Monday.
Yeah.
But what if we could look at that differently and plan that actually when biology and and nature is actually supporting you in the implementation of that new habit? Or
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh my word, that the whole New Year's thing. I used to kind of really lean into New Year's resolutions, and that's it, new me, new year, new me. And then more recently, I've been thinking, that's not normal, is
No.
it? New Year is not the time when anybody needs to be starting anything new. And actually, we should be doing it in spring.
Yeah.
If you look at the cycle,
And depending on where you are in the world,
where you are in the world, yeah, but wherever the world's spring is happening.
Yeah.
So rather than, because yeah, you're right. If you're in Australia, New Year's will be midsummer, and actually that might be quite a nice time. But actually, even if you said spring for wherever you are, then spring fits, because spring is the time when everything is renewing.
The concept of spring.
The concept of spring. And if you almost use, I don't know, the menstrual cycle as a, with the 4 seasons, then it kind of fits. Your New Year's is when you're all meant to be hunkering down, or rather winter is when you're meant to hunker down. But you're right, if you're on the other side of the
And I think as a
hemisphere.
metaphor, that works so well, isn't it?
Yeah.
At Spirituality, we made the conscious decision not to refer to the seasons because we do feel like it's so different for people depending on where they are in the world. But I agree with you that each season obviously has certain elements or characteristics that actually, are very aligned with how you might be. And people, I think there's also, I sometimes feel with things like this that you either do it or you don't.
Yeah.
And that's putting a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with a friend of mine who's vegan, and they're really struggling with this concept that they're vegan 99.90% of the time. But if anyone ever sees them eat like an M&M, it's like, I thought you were vegan.
I didn't realize M&Ms are they not vegan?
I think they're dairy and chocolate.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes.
Are you a
chocolate.
vegan?
No, I'm
You're not a vegan. But it's that idea of like, but now imagine being curious about limiting your meat or limiting your dairy and supporting climate change, being mindful. But even before you've started, you're already feeling that pressure of like, I have to do it a certain way. And I feel like sometimes
I've got to get it right.
Cycle tracking, it's the same thing of like, I've got to get it right.
Completely.
And I think what we're trying to do here is also open up that conversation of like, there is no right or wrong.
There is no right. I mean, I am going to put my hand up there and say I am so basic with my cycle tracking, because I've tried.
So basic.
I am basic. I've tried so many trackers. I cannot tell you how. I mean, from the fanciest, I've paid for some. I've all sorts, and some of them.
So many New Year's resolutions.
I mean, honestly, they're so complicated, and it's like put all these feelings, and half the time it's like all these words that I'm just like, I don't really align to any of those words any day, let alone today. I don't know which one to click. Completely pointless. So actually what I do is really basic. So I just put day 1 in my Apple Health, like literally day 1, and then I'll put the however many days of bleed I've had, and then that's that. But because I think I'm at that stage now where I've been doing it for a long time,
that's it.
I then know when ovulation is coming, and if something happens that throws me off and I think, oh, today was a bit weird, I might go back and say, well, when was day 1? Oh, right, I'm day 14 or whatever. So I guess I'm saying that just to say that opening up one of these apps can feel quite overwhelming sometimes, and you open it up and you're like, oh my word, I've got enough lists in my life without another thing to do. Maybe just if you could commit to 6 months of saying, I'm just going to put my period in.
Yeah. That's a
however
great
many days
start.
I bleed, I'm just going to put that, and I'm just going to do that every month.
Yeah.
And even that is just a subconscious link. Your brain starts being more mindful.
And we often say that, isn't it? Cycle tracking that's not the goal.
Yeah.
It's a tool to establish that relationship with your body, that you don't need that anymore. And
Exactly.
I think we often talk about unlearning as well, isn't it? Like there was a time where humanity was very closely aligned with nature and biology and what we were feeling and experiencing. And we've put so much on top of that in modern society that it's almost like going back to that, and cycle tracking can just be a great tool to help you pinpoint some of these moments. And what you said earlier about sometimes it's a little twinge that you might not recognize because you're so busy, whereas actually because you're tracking, you're paying more attention, you're starting to pick up on it. At some point you don't have to track, you feel it.
And I love that description actually, because I guess it is peeling back those layers that we've added on as a society, isn't it, that then take you back to being able to hear what your body's saying. Yeah,
because for you, like we talk a lot about like energy and mood and the brain and the body. Like when you say you gradually feel those shifts
Yeah.
When you like coming out of menstruation into follicular phase, like in what order do you pick up on those kind of?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would probably say mood. I start to feel better. It's really gradual. It's definitely not a switch. So it's more of, oh, I'm feeling quite perky and I'm in a good mood now. And
Yay.
yeah, and then I'll look back and say, oh yeah, that's because, it's been 5 days since my period stopped. So I'm just like, yeah, I feel really
Great.
perky. And so as my mood gets better, I feel like my energy starts to shift. My From a brain point of view, I think I just feel more positive. I start to feel, because I do get a real slump in my luteal phase, that I manage it much better now than I used to. But that sense of, imposter syndrome will creep in and all those kind of questioning. And then whereas once I kind of have stepped maybe a few days into after my period, I'll start to feel energetic. I'll start to have the ideas again. What you were saying before, and I do. I get a flurry of ideas that I then think, oh yeah, and I'll book a million appointments, and then now it's the task of kind of saying, okay, let's just balance that.
Take a deep breath.
Let's take a deep breath and pause. Pause. You don't need to book everything in one go. So yeah, I'd probably say that's the sequence. And mood, energy, brain.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. What about you?
Um, I would say, yeah, the mood energy one is a tricky one because they go. I think they might actually go hand in
Go
hand.
hand in hand. Yeah, possibly.
They
They're not
might go
probably
hand
far
in hand.
apart.
But what you said about like the veil lifting or the fog clearing, or I actually start to feel that when my period
Yeah.
starts.
Day 2.
So that's
Yeah.
already from a mood perspective, and then I just feel maybe a little bit more tired or more introverted.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe that's like a shift, maybe back from like introverted to extroverted. What I do definitely resonate with though is that level of overcommitting when you're in your
Yeah.
follicular phase,
Yeah.
because we always plan our meetings like 1-2 weeks ahead and meetups and social gatherings, and when I'm feeling it and I'm like, yes, I want to hang out with
Yes to
everyone all the
everything.
time, I'm going to do all the things. And then, well, now I'm so grateful I'm a little bit more sensible about it, but I'm also very basic in tracking my cycle. I love that. That's going to be our new hashtag, basic in cycle tracking. um but at least you have a little bit of that understanding of like, if I am going to commit to this, I need to know, even if it's in the back of my mind, that it might be a struggle when that time
When that time
comes.
comes.
And is it then still worth it? And that's then either a yes or a no. Whereas, and sometimes saying no to things or just carrying them on over like an extra week to know that you're a little bit more on the safe side, because it is so tempting to plan all the things when you're, feeling all that
Feeling
energy,
that. Yeah.
when it might just be different. I'm just back from a trip with some of my girlfriends, and like I was so happy that I was ovulating around that time, and because of the work I do, and obviously everyone knows and asks, and we have these conversations. That was like one of the first chats we had in on the plane. It's like,
Where
I'm
are
so
you?
happy. Where are you in your cycle? Because there's 6 women. We're going to be spending a week together. We're going to be doing lots of activities. It's going to be late nights, whatever. And just having a sense of where everyone is in their cycle
Yeah.
is actually really helpful. So obviously that I wouldn't necessarily schedule my holiday depending on where I am in my cycle, but that was great timing. And
Yeah.
in terms of the ownership that I do have, or the decision making power I do have over my own calendar,
And you've just
where
actually,
possible.
I've not thought of that before. And in terms of the interaction, everyone being able to share that actually means you're so much more mindful of each other, and you just show up
Absolutely.
for each other in a different
Absolutely.
way, don't
Yeah.
you? That's so great. And it's funny because I've got a couple of male friends who've kind of said, do you not think there's a lot of navel gazing around this? Lots of inward focus, and you guys just need to kind of get on with it. Like, why
Yeah.
do you need to know
And
day
so
by
many of
day?
us have for so long. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And minute by minute, what your cycle is doing in order to function. And my argument is, well, do you know what? It actually matters because you do show up differently and you are different. And the thing is,
Yeah.
our hormones aren't functioning in the same way in any 24-hour time frame. and they change how we show up. And actually knowing and owning that is powerful, rather than, it's not navel gazing, and it's not kind of internalizing, you're not living in your head all the time. And it's not to say that we're never going to take anything on at the, if it comes at the wrong time of your cycle, but it just means that when it does, then you're just a bit more mindful, and you're like, oh, my responsibilities say that I've got to do this right now, but just knowing if it tires me out a lot, when I do have a bit more time, I just need to give myself, compensate a little bit. Yeah, exactly. I love that.
And I think the thing that people ask me about when they say, what's the biggest impact or what's the biggest transformation, that's the kind of answers that they're hoping for, of like, well, all of a sudden all my symptoms disappeared, or all of a sudden I felt on top of my game, all the time. Or, whereas I always say the biggest transformation takes place in how we treat ourselves.
Yeah.
And how kind we are to ourselves. And I mean, and everything that flows from there. But I know if I do a presentation when I'm ovulating and I'm smashing it and I'm articulate and I feel confident and I'm wearing my favorite clothes that fit me well, and, I'm feeling good about it, and I do that exact presentation 2 weeks later where I might be in discomfort, I might actually physically, be uncomfortable. And then the imposter syndrome, or I find that especially in speaking English, that sometimes like I fumble, I can't think of words, more so in my luteal phase than when I'm ovulating. So I can come back from that thinking, I messed that up, like frustrated with myself, and I could do it 2 weeks ago, why can't I do it today? And just to be able, even that morning before you go out, say, you know what, it's not going to be my best presentation, but I'm going to try my best.
I'm going to do my best.
That shifts the energy of the whole day, and about how I view myself. I can still be proud of myself for showing up, for doing a great job, knowing that it might not have been my bestest work. It might still be, but because I'm approaching it differently. But it just takes away that pressure we put on ourselves of comparing ourselves constantly to a version
of yourself that
2 weeks later or earlier. So
that's so true.
I think that the self-compassion and how we treat ourselves, and therefore each other, and how we look at each other, I think is the biggest impact.
I think you're right. And I think even more so also because we're talking this whole time about your average cycle, right? Think about all those women who don't have the average cycle, in terms of have really severe symptoms, have severe pain, have severe bleeding, have irregular periods, unpredictable, and how hard it is to show up as your best self when you have all of that happening. But the expectation in your day-to-day life is to show up as your best self, because nobody knows, right? And they're kind of suffering in silence. And just having that self-compassion, like you say, because instead, you're kind of, I don't know, you're someone who has endometriosis and has awful periods, and, the week before you're in so much pain and you have to do this presentation, and then you go home thinking, gosh, I made such a mess, and you're just blaming yourself. Whereas the ability to say, oh my word, even the fact that I turned up when I'm in agony is actually just nothing short of a miracle. So I just need to be really happy with my performance regardless. So that's it. Or even just, someone who has really heavy periods that last, say, 10 days, and how depleted that can leave you afterwards. So we're talking about really energetic follicular phase, how I feel great, a few days after my period. But
like all of our episodes could do with like a long list of disclaimers, right? And I think it's very important for you to point that out, that we're trying to bring people along on this journey of understanding and knowing, whilst appreciating and continue to appreciate that everyone's experience is so different.
And not just appreciating, but also giving tools to everyone's experience. Actually, even though these things don't seem applicable to those that don't have a sort of, bog standard period, that actually there are still bits that can support them within that. And so even if, someone who does feel depleted in that follicular phase, there's still things that they can do that will help them sort of build up and feel better leading up to that next phase.
And I'm excited because I already know that we've got plans for an episode on that as well.
We do.
More coming.
It's time for Hot or Not Flush, where we test if the latest trends are cycle gold or just hot air. So are we doing our hot or not?
Hot or not segment?
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's go. Cold plunging for PMS. Hot or not?
I would say... Putting me on the spot there. I think...
Well, I suppose before you tell me hot or not, tell me a bit about what your thoughts
So
are
that's,
around,
I think that's why, yeah.
around cold plunges.
Cold plunges, I think, work
Yeah?
for a lot of people.
Yeah?
I would say people describe how they work differently depending on their
I
experiences.
love them.
So some would say it's their mood, some would say actually physical things like, and then I'm also reading and hearing a lot about how women should just not do that. And especially around your period, we always have, like, as this rule of thumb, keep your womb warm. Like, why on earth would you go and sit in like an ice bath? So, I mean, it's clearly not hot, but I would love to hear your take on that. Hot or not?
I would probably say it depends. I agree with you. I think there is some data to say a lot of the studies were done on men. We don't have quite as much research on women. There have been, though, reports that have said women have felt better doing cold plunges for PMS. They had an improvement in mood. Some said it helped with period pain. But actually, sorry.
PMS, I just realised we threw in
Oh, yes, we threw in
there.
PMS and didn't describe. So, yeah, so premenstrual tension or premenstrual syndrome. So lots of symptoms that kind of accumulate in that late luteal phase. So sort of just before period, where it can range from mood changes to period pain, to pain, to headaches, to quite a wide sort of constellation of things that can happen that can just really affect your quality of life. And if it's really severe, it can be something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. But yeah, going back to cold plunges, I think I would say it depends. And I would say, again, it's one of those really personal things. Try it and see. And there's actually some research as well that says that it might benefit women, but not as cold as men. So maybe a little bit warmer. So still colder.
So a little bit hot.
But a little bit hot. But yeah, that's probably what I'd say. But the thing is, there's other things that are really well established for premenstrual syndrome. So things like yoga, things like exercise. So regular exercise does really help with pain and mood. And things like magnesium and vitamin B6 are probably the most helpful.
But from your perspective, if people are curious or they are experiencing, about the cold plunging, it can't do you any harm in giving it a go.
It can, I mean, I think it can cause, so you need to be careful because it can, if you go into really cold water, it could make your heart stop. Ultimately, it could cause harm. So definitely know that,
have a guide for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. Don't do it on your own if you've never done it before. I would always say go to a session, a sort of guided session. But it's definitely worth giving it a go to see how it feels and whether it helps or not. But from a research point of view, I'd probably say it depends. Not huge amounts of data out there.
Okay. I've got one for you as well.
Go on.
These apps to track your cycle that go off of the perfect 28-day cycle.
28-day cycle. Not hot. I
had a feeling. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know why I threw it out there because...
Yeah. I mean, we don't like those, do we? I think, first of all, a normal cycle can range from sort of 23 to 35 days. So just straight off the bat, a standard 28-day cycle probably isn't going to fit lots and lots of women, but actually they still have a normal cycle. Ovulation can also vary. So I know we say it happens on day 14 of a 28-day cycle, but there's women who regularly ovulate on day 16 of a 28 or day 17 of a 28-day cycle. So I again would say it's more about tracking your own cycle rather than
Not saying.
not hot.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap it up with a tip of the day.
Tip of the day.
Tip of the day. Throw some wisdom.
I think you've got better wisdom on overcommitment.
Well, overcommitment, but also I'd like to lean into the idea side of things. I think I'm because I'm leaning so much on structure and systems to organize my chaotic brain. I think that time where I feel the ideas flowing, it's really helpful for me. I started journaling recently, and not necessarily from like a writing, because I tried to do that anyway, but from like you sit with a page and you've got some stickers and colouring in pens and letters and how
are you finding it?
Oh, so hard. It's great therapy, but just to kind of let your mind run freely and not make the page look perfect, not put the text on like a straight line, whatever. So I think the invitation of the follicular phase is also for the ideas to just be without the pressure or expectations that they need to happen or that they have a deadline. So maybe just inviting some creativity in your life and getting ideas out of your head onto the paper.
I like that.
What about you?
My tip would probably be a bit more physical. I would say get into a rhythm of sort of regular exercise that you can maintain. Because I think it's hard. Sometimes the menstrual phase is that time where you sort of don't feel like doing anything. You know, you've got your period. You're like, oh, the last thing I want to do is go to the gym. But if you can, that follicular phase gives you that sense of, oh right, let's do this. It's getting into a rhythm of something that you could keep going through that, because sometimes if your menstrual phase throws you out of sync, then it can take a while to build back in, and that's the one thing that can really make a difference to your mood.
I mean, we were just talking about starting new habits at the beginning of your follicular phase.
So yeah, that would be my tip. Pop,
this was great.
It was.
I love this. Next time we're going to be talking all things ovulation,
proper power phase.
Yeah, how might be feeling.
Yeah, although I say power phase,
they're all power phases.
I'll revisit that, because actually I'd probably say it's not my power phase, even though that's what's advertised. But yeah, more on that next time. Thank you so much.
Oh,
it's been lovely.
See you next time. If you would like to reach out to the Not Designed for the Grind team or want to tell us your story, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at podcast@periodreality.org or follow us on Instagram @periodrealityofficial. You can also connect with us directly on Instagram at the.delphi.clinic and @Marlou Cornelissen, or find us on LinkedIn under Dr. Katerina Bambang and Marlou Cornelissen. If you'd like more resources, show notes and updates, visit periodreality.org/podcast. If someone came to mind while you were listening, send them this episode. And if you believe in what we're building, the simplest way to support us is to follow the show on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Ratings and reviews really do help more people find us, and 5-star reviews go a long way. A big thank you to all of you listeners, and please remember, the only thing that is true is what is true for you. Not Designed for the Grind is a podcast by Period Reality. The show is produced by Isabella Lindahl, created and hosted by Dr. Katerina Bambang and myself, Marlou Cornelissen. Audio editing and mixing by Delilah Odima, and our visual branding is developed by Millie Mensa. A special thank you to Favor Asueleman and the incredible team at Period Reality. We'll see you next time.